podcast.
I roasted on the weekend a tofurkey. And it's got me wondering where that puts me on the single guy continuum. Here's what I think, okay? I think you come out of a long-term committed relationship. You don't automatically become a single guy, okay? You do by strict definition. It's like you're together and now you're not together. You are therefore single, but single by definition and single by lifestyle, single by self-identification, two different things. I think there is a scale. I think there is a continuum that you've got to walk along as you transition out of committed relationship into single life. And there are a couple of signposts that I've identified that suggest you are actually moving along that continuum. One of the signposts is you're roasting something. And the second observable signpost in my experience is washing bed sheets of your own volition. Because let's be real, kids, okay? For most of us who have been in a long-term committed relationship, and I can only speak for what we might describe or define as your traditional monogamous hetero relationship, husband and wife, one of those. I cannot speak for any other type of relationship, all right? I cannot speak for same-sex couple relationships, although I know lots of people who are in them. I cannot speak for those who enjoy the consciously non-monogamous lifestyle. Maybe thruples have a different dynamic to them. But for most of us, especially those of us who are Generation X or older, because Generation X is a bridge generation, okay? We are a bridge from the old world, boomers and beyond, to the new world, millennials, Gen Z, Gen Y, etc. I think we're a bridge. Okay, we are occupying a weird space there, but we're more traditional probably than we like to pretend we are. I know we think we're hip, Generation X. Hip and glib and cynical. Seen it all, done it all. We're 30 at 10 years old and remain 30 at 50 years old. But I think we're more traditional than we like to let on. And so if you have been for a long time in a committed, monogamous, heterosexual relationship, I know I'm tap dancing on a landmine here. If you've been in such a relationship, I'm willing to bet that in the vast majority of cases, if there is roasting going on, or if bed sheets are being washed intentionally, chances are the female member of the couple is behind that most of the time. Does that get me canceled? This is what's the problem, okay? I feel as though I have to tap dance around even saying the word female, and the President of the United States can do anything with complete impunity, and that just seems wrong to me. Don't want to make it political, just saying. So if you're a single guy and a Generation X and above, and you're coming out of a long-term committed, fairly traditional heterosexual relationship, signposts on the way to becoming a single person in practical reality, roasting something, and cleaning bed sheets of your own volition. Both of those things I did last weekend. So I guess this is in some way, if not progress, at least movement on a trajectory. It's going to be kind of a silly episode, kids, okay? I know last week was a bit heavy. Got into some heavy stuff last week. A lot of them have been heavy lately. Let's lighten the mood. Let's have a little fun, okay? My friend Mark messages me a photograph of a tofurkey in a box, and he says, "Hey, would you eat that?" And I said, "Probably." And he must have reasonably expected me to say that because he's like, okay, I'm bringing it over. And I've not inquired as to why he didn't want it, although having cooked it, I can guess. And it probably made sense in his mind. And as soon as he brought it over, I took this thing out of the box, I looked at it, and I'm like, I know exactly what this is going to taste like. I've never eaten a tofurkey before, but I know exactly what this is going to taste like because I've eaten a pile of your soy-based meat substitute products over the years. Because I dance around the edges of vegetarianism all the time because I got a big heart, kids. I'm a softie, and I have serious ethical problems with the meat industry and with eating animals because I'm a pinko liberal commie. Nothing to do with health whatsoever. Meat is delicious. I feel way better, stronger, healthier when I'm eating it. But I got this problem with the animals. And once you begin to go down that road, once you make this connection between animals and the food on your plate, and you're inclined the way I am, you're going to run into problems. And for years, I've been wrestling with this. I go through little phases of being vegetarian, and it doesn't usually work out, especially in the old days when I was more of a gym rat and I could just feel my strength depleting, could feel my energy depleting. It's a very, very difficult thing to do that, to eat vegetarian, and to maintain a level of health. Especially if you're trying to build muscles in the gym, man. You're pumping iron and you're doing all sorts of curls and these sorts of things. It's very, very difficult to build and maintain a muscle mass without eating animal protein. It's possible, I think, but it's easier now than it used to be. So I've eaten a ton of these meat substitutes with that in mind. And damn it, if they don't all taste exactly the same. I mean, you can put all sorts of colored food dye into it. You can spice it and pretend it tastes like pepperoni, but it doesn't, man. Every one of these products has some fundamental. There's some fundamental, all right? There's a note that drones in that chord throughout all of them, right? Now, the modern stuff is getting better. Your Impossible Meats, your Undeniables, your I Can't Believe It's Not Meat. That stuff is better. But I'm not convinced it's better for you, because if you turn around the package and you look at it, ton of ingredients in those products, man. Now, they taste pretty good, right? They're not meat, but they're closer. And flavor-wise, they're pretty good, but I don't know if they're healthy. I really don't know if they're healthy. And so, better. But I took a look at this tofurkey, and I thought, I know just what this is going to taste like. And it's especially difficult at this moment because I have begun in the past 6 weeks or so eating meat again. Now, I was not off meat. I was not a vegetarian, but I was eating pretty much exclusively veggie at home. Then I go out to somebody's place and they would be making dinner for people, or there'd be a dinner party. And yeah, I'd eat the meat, whatever. Like, I was not strict about it. But at home, I was mostly eating vegetarian. And the problem I ran into is that I have always had slightly on the low end in terms of white blood cell count. Okay, I get blood work done fairly regularly, and I've always been kind of on the low end of normal in terms of white blood cells. Not really an issue, but there's been a downward trend. Over the past 4 years or so, there's been a downward trajectory in the white blood cells. And not enough to alarm anybody, necessarily, but enough for it to be red flagged. And on my last blood test, we dipped below the bottom edge of normal for a white blood cell count. And that's what I'm describing as a medical curiosity. Okay, my doctor referred me to a hematology lab, said, hey, check out this dude's numbers. Do you think you might want to have a look at them? And the heme lab came back and said, not too worried about it. And I'm not showing any symptoms of there being a problem. Okay, usually if you have low white blood cells, they are the ones that fight off infections. They're part of your immune system. They are going around your body, kicking out the undesirables. So usually if you have an issue with low white blood cells, you're chronically kind of sick. You get a lot of infections, and There's none of that for me. All right, if that hadn't showed up on my blood work, there would have been no indication whatsoever. And the heme lab is like, meh, keep an eye on it. So nobody's worried. It's a medical curiosity. But I'm looking at it like, well, how do we raise that white blood cell count? And I've been wondering if there's a link between eating veggie and this lowering white blood cell count. So, as an experiment, because I'm scheduled to have more blood work done next month, let's eat meat for a while. So I'm back up and I'm eating your steaks, your chicken, et cetera, and I'll tell you straight up, feeling way better. And not that I was feeling bad, but I can just tell that I'm stronger. I can tell that I have more energy. I can just tell that I'm healthier when I'm eating this stuff within reason. I'm not losing my freaking mind here, but I'm eating a pretty normal level of meat now than I wasn't before, and I can already feel the physical changes. And I don't know if that will have any effect whatsoever on my white blood cell count. And if it doesn't, then I'll have to start looking at the ethical side of it again. But I've been eating quite a lot more meat and feeling a lot just stronger, healthier. And I don't know. Now, I also know that white blood cell count can be affected by stress, and I also know that cholesterol can be affected by stress. So if you have sudden spikes in cholesterol, not talking about anybody in particular, I know that stress and anxiety they release hormones, right? And they release cortisol, and that affects cholesterol in your body. And so there's been a slight uptick in cholesterol in the past 4 years. Now, if you trace back 4 years, almost 5 years now, anxiety breakdown. Okay, so I've been living with pretty intense anxiety at times for the past 4 years. You see on my chart, upwards cholesterol, downwards white blood cells. So I don't know, stress, anxiety might be part of it. Diet might be part of it too. Now, I have my anxiety and stuff well under control now. Thank you, therapy. Thank you, Ram Dass. Thank you, meditation. Thank you, doing the work on myself low these past several years. I have that under control. So the diet is the outstanding factor. And so I'm experimenting a little bit with my diet just to see. And so I've been eating red meat, which is yummy. And along comes my friend Mark with a damn tofurkey that I knew was going to taste like every other veggie product, soy-based veggie product. And it took damn close to 2 hours to roast this thing. I made the little baste, right? Olive oil, some soy sauce, roasted this thing, followed the instructions, took it out of the oven, and tasted exactly like I thought it would. Gravy, not bad. Gravy in a bag, not bad. Didn't mind the gravy. And I'm not a big stuffing guy, but they stuffed it as though it were a turkey, a perfectly cylindrical turkey, because you see those out on the range all the time. And hey, it was an attempt exactly like you would expect. If you've ever eaten any of those products, tasted just like that. Didn't love it. Okay, wasn't good. But I get it. I get it from the perspective of someone who is actually a strict vegetarian or a strict vegan. It's like your options are limited. I mean, when you opt for that lifestyle, you are opting for a different relationship with food. It's going to become, in many cases, not so much about flavor anymore. And it's a real quest to try and get the nutrients. And so a product like this will bring some of them, right? It will bring the protein. It will give you, if you put enough gravy on it, you can almost hide that funky tofu taste that runs through everything. I'm better off just eating regular old-fashioned tofu. Like I fry that up regularly, put a nice sauce on it, whatever, and it works just fine. But these, I don't know what it is that's in these substitute products, but it just dominates everything. So slather that mofo in gravy. The gravy is not bad. You know, eat it with potatoes, eat it with whatever. I don't know. But I get why vegetarians eat that stuff. I understand that the options are limited, and they're way more expensive than they used to be. I mean, I don't know what it was like in the 60s. You could eat nothing but lentils and chickpeas, I guess. And I like me a chickpea curry, by the way. I got no issue going to the Indian restaurant, eating lentils, eating a chickpea curry, eating like a potato curry or whatever. Delicious. Paneer, fabulous. I got no issue with that. But man, some of these products, yikes. And who cares anyways, right? Except just to say, I might be sliding along a continuum towards singledom. And I don't know if on this podcast I'm going to get into the particulars of singledom. I kind of look at it, I kind of peek over the parapet at it at this moment. I dip a toe just across the curtain, peek around the corner and look at it. Looks messy to me. Gotta be honest, looks messy to me. I don't know if I'll chronicle any of that along the way, but given last week, I was feeling a bit heavy and I was dealing with some stuff. And there was some response to that episode, actually, because, it's just going to be that way in life sometimes. You are going to encounter periods of time where it's just a struggle. Mentally, it's a struggle emotionally, especially like me, if you're going through stuff and there's been a ton of life change. There's a lot of unanswered questions. There's a lot of uncertainty about the future. It's very possible to lose that sense of faith that I keep trying so hard to cultivate, all right? This is not a rock solid thing. It has to be cultivated. It has to be maintained, much like your physique. And it's a bit difficult sometimes to maintain that and keep it going. And so last week was a struggle. This week I'm trying to let you know, anybody who's worried, that all is well. Being silly. Cooking a tofurkey, half of which I ate, and half of which I did not. But I got to tell you, man, there is still a lesson. All right, there's still an object lesson this week if you've lasted this long through my pitter-patter. There are a couple, actually. There are a couple of lessons related to a gig I played last week. A couple of lessons related to two gigs I played last week. The Lindsay and the Lonelies gigs. We were on the road Thursday night. We had a rough time. Gotta be honest, kids, I haven't played a gig like this in a long time. I've been very lucky that the artists that I've been playing with, the circumstances in which we've been playing for the past several years, for the most part, I haven't run into this situation in a long, long time. And it's a situation where you go play a room at a town and that room is just bloody empty. I haven't had that one in a long time, man. Playing to a sea of empty seats, if there had been seats in this club. The sort of rock club that Hearts would have played and crushed 10 years ago. Not really an alt-country bar necessarily, but we went and played this place. It was out of town, a couple hours out of town, on a Thursday night. Place was empty, and we struggled a little bit. And we struggled a little bit with the performance. We struggled a little bit with the show. It was a bit deflating. And then the problem you run into, especially on a Thursday night, is some of us who have regular jobs I got to work Friday morning, and it's a late night. 10 years ago, I could more easily handle get home late, get up early, go to work. So last week, we played the show. It's not a good show. We struggled with the performance, struggled with the room, struggled with the whole thing, and then get in the car at like 12:30, 1 a.m. in February in Ontario, Canada, all right? Those of you Australians who are listening, February in Ontario, Canada is not the same as February in Oz, And as soon as we came outside from the club, we're loading out, and that kind of wispy, wet snow is beginning to fall. And I'm like, oh no, don't do this to me. And it's been a bad winter, okay? Part of my issue last week was just simply seasonal affective disorder. This winter has been snowy, damn cold, and it's been a rough one, and it's been kind of oppressive. Sun's out now, nice to see. We come out, we're loading out, it's beginning to snow, it's really cold, it's late, and, it just turned into one of those drives, one of those really rough, snow-covered highway, blowing snow, icy roads. We were on the 401 for you Americans, that's the Ontario equivalent of your standard interstate, right? So the big double lane highway, ton of trucks, and the way they plow those roads is in kind of banks of plows, right? That cover the whole highway. And we got into just a mess of traffic behind a bunch of slow-moving plows. Big transport trucks don't give a crap, man. They're passing me on the right. They're flying past me. They're splattering the windshield with snow. Going 50K an hour in a 100K highway. And we all know nobody goes 100 kilometers an hour on the 401. You go 100K an hour, they're going to call the cops on you. It's like 120 minimum these days. We're on 50K, right? White knuckling it, getting blown all over the place. Lots of traffic, snowing, icy, really, really jumpy. I hate driving in that stuff. I hate driving in that stuff. And it's not getting better with time, all right? Rough show, rough performance, really rough drive home. And when my alarm went off Friday morning, I got to bed at 3. I'm up at 7. My alarm went off and I just thought, I can't do this, man. I just can't do this anymore. And because I just felt so bad. And the show had been such a bring down. It's a different thing if we went out and we played to a packed out club and they loved it and we played great. We came home on that high. We'd say, well, this was worth it. This was worth the kind of agony of driving home. Didn't really have that to hold on to. And so I woke up Friday morning and we know what life was like for me last week. I was already not in a great headspace. And I was just like, I can't do this, man. I said to my friend Paul, I just woke up and I'm like, I can't do this. And Paul very astutely asked, which part? The gig part or the getting up for work part? Which one can't you do anymore? Fair question, Paul. That's why he gets paid the big bucks. And that's a low. That's a low, okay? And it's very easy when you get into a low like that, especially if you've been kind of in a low place anyhow, to just get sucked down. You just be like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? What's the friggin' point of this? And it's fair to ask that question after a gig like that. But it can pull you down so hard, right? It can just suck you into the ground and really knock you for one if you're not careful. And what I'm pleased to report and what the lesson, I suppose, is of this week's episode is that you can shake it off, man. Like T friggin' Swift, you can shake it off. And one of the things they say, if your sports team, is if you lose a game badly, it's really helpful if you've got another game the next day or another game in a couple of days, right? An opportunity to just rewrite the script, right? Get back at it, right? Get back on the horse. It's when you've got a week or two off to just ruminate on how badly that went that you can get sucked down the rabbit hole. And as luck would have it, the Lindsay Band had a hometown gig the next night on Friday. And, well, geez, we're coming off an awful gig. And then we suddenly and unexpectedly found ourselves down a bass player the next day. It's like, oh, man. Can we do the show without a bass player? No, I hate drums, no bass. It does not work for me. Much better a duo with no rhythm section at all than full band, no bass. It just doesn't work for me. It's very unnerving for me and I don't like doing it. So when they come up and say, should we do the show no bass? I'm like, no, we shouldn't do the show no bass. But then the band didn't want to do a duo thing. And what are we going to, we have to cancel this after having had a rotten night and an awful drive home and we're tired and now we're going to cancel the hometown show that I know people are coming to. It's just like an untenable situation. It's really bad. And here's where the other lesson comes in, because I called up my pal, longtime John Huff podcast listener, James V, first ballot Hall of Famer, James V, bass player extraordinaire, a real friggin' pro. And that's what you need in that circumstance, kids. You need a real friggin' pro. And we're due on stage at 10 o'clock and it's like 2 in the afternoon. We're scrambling. I message James V and I say, hey man, can you learn 10 Lindsay songs in 8 hours? That's an ask. That is an ask. And damn it. James V says, sounds like a challenge. Let's go. That's a pro, man. The confidence, the self-assurance, the confidence to have a gig come at you like that and say, yes, send me the stuff. And then I assumed, and I was right, James V was going to listen to the songs. He was going to chart them. He's going to show up with his iPad, able to read the charts that he wrote. I mean, I can chart all day long, but then in the moment, I can't read the friggin' chart. And wow, we showed up and we decided not to cancel the hometown gig. We were opening for Lost Property doing a CD release. That's always a big night when you're doing a CD release. You don't want to bail on that. You don't want to bail on the band you're opening for. You don't want to bail on the people you know are coming. It's bad for your reputation to bail on gigs like that, man, especially at a nice place, which is one of the few places left that will book anybody anymore, right? It was an important gig, especially after the night before, that bounce back gig, right? And we showed up, and James V showed up exactly as I expected, the charts ready to go. And we got up on stage and we played. And I got to tell you, this is how I knew, this is how James V can know. I mean, he knows anyways that he crushed the gig. We were so relieved, and he saved our asses for sure. It's like we kicked off the show and I didn't think about the bass. I was not required to think about the bass, right? I've played other gigs where a band member was new or a band member was off or something wasn't just right, and you're tense the whole time, right? I'm focused on that band member and what he or she is doing from where I am behind the drums doing what it is I can do to help, but monitoring that situation. I pulled right out of the show for me. I'm monitoring that person. How can I help that person? How can I mitigate that person? And I realized about a minute into the first song, I wasn't even thinking about the bass guitar. It was just there. And then I knew it was just going to be there. And we wound up having a great show. I think the band played great. The energy was great. There were people. They liked it. We sang like friggin' birds. We played great. And I was really, really proud of us. I was really proud of us for bouncing back from that chicken wire gig that we had the night before, right? And I've talked about chicken wire gigs before. That belongs to my great friend Ann Menez, and nobody's better than Ann Menez. The scene in Roadhouse where Jeff Healey is playing behind chicken wire. And that is the euphemism now for gigs that just are heinous, gigs that go off the rails. It's not really anybody's fault. It's just circumstance. Happens once in a while. Hasn't happened to me in a long time to be in a circumstance like that. Keeps you humble, man. And to bounce back from a chicken wire gig like that, to shake it off. And it's an object lesson. It's an object lesson for all of us when we screw something up. Not that we screwed something up Thursday night. We did our best with it. But like when things don't go your way, right? When you find yourself in a circumstances where it's just not feeling right, or things didn't go right, or you got something wrong, or you screwed up, it's possible to shake it off. When you're low, when you feel like you don't want to do this anymore because it's not friggin' worth it, but deep down inside, you know you want to do it more, and it is worth it, but you're just in a bad spot. In a bad spot with the book you're writing, in a bad spot with how things are going at the job, in a bad spot even in your relationship. You know, every relationship has sticky points. Okay, if you're in it long enough, you're going to run into sticky points. You're going to do things wrong, or things are going to be done wrong to you, and it's going to feel hopeless at times. It's going to feel like it just can't be saved anymore. And that's a story you're telling yourself most of the time, and you can shake it off, right? I woke up Friday morning thinking, I can't do this anymore. And then it would have been very easy to be like, music's just not worth it. On the evidence of that one show and that one experience, music's not worth it. And it's very easy to get wrapped up in that kind of dark, toxic mindset. It's very easy to tell yourself that story, get wrapped up in that story. And then I could have bailed myself, right? In a fit of pique. I could have been like, you know what? I'm out. I just don't want to do this. This was not worth it. But it's one show, and it can happen especially in February when the weather's not great. Out of town, you're kind of asking for it, really. But you can shake it off. And the evidence was presented on Friday because we turned right around the next day and we went and we had a really good show, a really edifying show. Surrounded by our friends, surrounded by people who liked what we were doing, and we played good and the energy was there. And it's like things are temporary. You know, nothing very, very good and nothing very, very bad ever last very, very long. But it's so easy to get caught up in that dark moment and then let that dark moment just become the story, become the permanent reality. And I had to be reminded, you can shake it off. You can shake it off when work's not going well. You can get a different job. You can shake it off when your relationship's not going well. You can recalibrate. You can reset. You can talk. You can find those feelings again. You can shake stuff off. And there are times when it's right to shake stuff off. There is times There are times when the right thing is to bail, when the right thing is to shut something down, when the right thing is to end something or stop something. And you have to encounter that on a situation by situation basis. But damn it, you can shake it off and you can bounce back. And I had that illustrated to me on Friday night. And I also had it illustrated to me by James V. Just the power of preparation, the power of believing in yourself. And good things happen when you put yourself out there, man. And he did that. I mean, we asked him, he woke up that morning not knowing he was going to play a show that night with a band he'd never played with before. That takes chutzpah, man. That takes nerves of steel. As I've talked about, life sometimes demanding of us. And what a great illustration and what a great lesson. I mean, that dude backed himself because he knew he had the goods. I mean, he has done the work. He has the experience. He knows how to handle this. This is what makes him a pro. And when the chips are down, you call a friggin' pro. And as a musician, great object lesson for me. Great example for me. It's like, hey, dude, could you have done it? Could you have done it? Would I have taken that gig on 8 hours? Probably not. Probably not. Because I don't know if I could back myself to do it. But it's like, okay, well, there's a gap there in your game, right? There's something to be brought up to a level, which is your charting, which is your quick turnaround, which is learning songs in a hurry. Something I haven't put as much time into as maybe I should as a person who might get a fill-in call like that. The first gig I ever played with Lindsay, like 10 years ago, was on 3 days' notice. So that's something. That's not nothing. I got the call 3 days before gig time. Hey, we need a drummer. Can you take it? And Lindsay sent me at the time mostly just drumless demos. Like there weren't even drum parts for a lot of this stuff. Had to make them up. Had to show a little courage of my own. And did it. And that's edifying. I mean, it's when you begin to develop this track record of pulling stuff off that you get more comfortable and more confident in your ability to do it. And so I thank James V for saving our butts. I thank James V for being a friggin' pro. I thank James V for coming in with the right attitude and the right willingness and the right preparation and just crushing that for us. Just coming in and crushing that for us, inspiring me to look at my own game and where I can be more effective in a circumstance like that. And just the illustration of confidence that guy brought in. Man, that was really an inspiring thing, and I'm just grateful for it. And I'm grateful to James V for being a supporter of this program. But man, if you're stuck and you need a bass player in a hurry, that's your guy. And I'll work at trying to be better at being that guy if it's a drummer you're missing. And I want you to take that away from this episode, okay? You can ignore the bits about Tofurkey, but remember that there's always another chance. There's not always another chance, but most of the time there's another chance, right? If things didn't go the way you wanted, you didn't do as well as you wanted to, if you feel a little bit despairing, you can shake it off. You can get another opportunity to do the thing and set it right. And I've had to do that over and over and over and over again as a musician. And that's just life, man. We are none of us perfect. And there are just going to be circumstances sometimes that pull us down. You can shake that off. And you can enter into the world face forward with confidence in your ability, especially if you've done the work to develop that ability in whatever it is. All right. Take with you into this world, take with you into the rest of this month, the courage of James V, the self-confidence of James V. All right. Do the work required for you to be able to face the world with the confidence of a James V. That's a powerful thing, man. That's a powerful thing when you know you can just handle it. And I got to think about that. And that applies to many, many, many areas of life. So, man, thanks, dude. That was really impressive, inspiring, and so helpful. Now, before we go, I haven't talked a lot about new music at all recently. I've had other stuff on my mind. I want to tip you off to something cool in indie, all right? And it's a project called Burn Unders. BURN space UNDERS. And the principal of Burn Unders, messaged me and just said, hey, dropping a new record, playing a gig on Valentine's Day at the Palisade in London, L-Town. And it's going to be, I guess, a CD release because this new record, Burn Unders and the Whole Wide World, was dropped last week, doing a release show at the Palisade. And the great irony of that is that I was supposed to be headlining that show. Originally, I was supposed to be headlining that show with the Carly Thomas Band, but due to unforeseen circumstances, the Carly Thomas Band will not be able to perform at that show. And Severia has subbed in as the headliner, and that's going to be great too. Burn Unders is playing. And it's just a cool record, man. It's just a cool record. I'm happy to plug particularly indie stuff that's coming out. And when I listened to this, I didn't know what to expect at all. I was going in blind on this. And when I was listening to it, two names sprang immediately to mind. They were Tool and City and Color. Weird combination, I know. But musically, I thought Tool, and vocally, I thought City and Color. And so I messaged Burn Unders and I said, what are the influences here? And the response was, well, I would say Tool and Dallas Green. So I guess I'm pretty savvy, kids. I guess I still got it. And that's the vibe I got off of this. This is a rock album. Pretty proggy, pretty dreamy in a lot of cases, actually. It's a really, really neat record. And I think musically it did remind me quite a bit of Tool. Not as heavy as Tool. They're a little bit more melodic, a little bit more spacey, but it sounded like Tool at the same time. Some of the chord progressions, maybe, some of the prog elements of it. It's not super duper heavy. There's some really wicked playing on it. Do not get me wrong. Some virtuoso guitar stuff. Really, really crackerjack band. Good players. And some really interesting melody happening. And then a voice that does sound quite a bit like Dallas Green. It's got that kind of high, clean, clear tone that Dallas Green has. And it's a cool record. All right. So if you are into anything that sounds anything like that, go to your Spotify, Burn Unders and the Whole Wide World. Really, really cool record. And if you're in L-Town or surrounding environs, go to Palisade, Valentine's Day. Take your sweetheart, take your shots, and go check out Burn Unders and Severia. And sorry, I will not be there performing with the Carly Thomas Band. It would have been a lot of fun. Was looking forward to it. And unfortunately, I will not be able to do that. But that's going to be an interesting show. And go support local, man. If you're in L-Town, part of the local scene, check out Burn Unders. Really, really cool band. And I think that's going to be a really neat show. So go listen to that album, Burn Unders and the Whole Wide World. I have to stop now. I'm really cutting the edge of deadline here. Since I'm working full time, finding it extraordinarily difficult to squeeze this podcast into my life, but I don't want to let it go, man. I don't want to let it go. I still think it has potential that I'm trying to untap. Want to thank you for listening. Gonna shutting up, except to say good things really do happen when you put yourself out there. Remember the example of James V. And hey, kids, I'll check you later. Yeah. I just tried to do the shake it off thing and can't shake that off.